So I'll just walk you through what so this is Little Animals, I'm Jeff Koons, and this is the Space Island. I think this is, we all know each other here. And so for the first time we're going to do this talk. Nick Raynolds has a show up now, so the closing is tomorrow. There's actually another talk tomorrow with a guy named Alex Morrissey, who has a blog. He has a podcast with illustrated novelists. So he's going to talk to Nick about how there's an overlap with illustration. And so that's tomorrow, also around 6 o'clock. But more importantly, we have Frank Lombardo, who's been here for a while. I don't know how long you've been here, about 10 years or so.
Oh, 18.
18.
Marshall.
Right. Yeah. So he's all the way in Marshall. And Frank and Nick, so Frank went to the Maryland, I'm going to say Institute of Art, that's wrong. It's the
College. Yeah.
College of Institute of Art, and then went on to study in Norway with, and I studied briefly in Florence, and then studied in Norway with Nerdrum, and then also got a scholarship, Fulbright, went to Iceland and painted there. So, and you've been working here and like a lot of artists, you're sort of in your own little world, and you just work, and you just sort of try to pull it off. Nick has even fuller education went to college in Vancouver, and then spent like a year abroad in Halifax, Canada. Nick is Canadian, grew up in Vancouver, so he also studied in Düsseldorf, in Germany, and then a lot of his studies took place in a school called the Water Street Atelier. In New York City. So what's interesting about this talk is the idea that we're going to focus on a number of things. You're going to just take it whatever direction you want. But the idea was sort of this education. Some artists have leaked into what was not really happening at the time. So Nick was really at the very forefront of it, where they started looking at classical training and drawing, painting from three-dimensional sculpture, and working with the figure, and spending a long time and working on sort of what that meant. It's just working on, like in this example here, doing just a grisaille, where you're just working in gray tones. You're just working on tone. So this doesn't just happen. You work and work and work at it. And that kind of education Nick was one of the first people to go into this sort of atelier system. And then when Frank went to college, that started kind of kicking in at the university level. It really had disappeared. And Dusty, who was here, went to school in the early 70s in California, and it was very, very different. It was much more conceptual, and there really wasn't a lot of skill-based sort of information. So that's the introduction, and we're just going to talk for about 20 minutes or so, and then Frank's going to sort of walk through. Nick can sort of pull out things, and we're going to have a conversation. Yeah.
So the 90s, and then the aughts.
You got it.
Yeah, graduated in 2002.
Art school 80s.
Oh, wow. Pterodactyls.
Oh, definitely pterodactyls. In California.
Very well.
No, just wondering, because you were talking about when this changed to more classical, in things that never left, because we were digging it actually.
And probably a big difference in the last 10 years between you and me,
Yeah.
yeah.
They weren't doing that in Maryland?
They just, I chose Maryland Institute College of Art because of RISD and Mass Art, everybody, they had the strongest painting program, traditional painting program.
RISD did?
No, Micah. Over RISD.
Oh, yeah.
RISD was more
RISD is like
illustrative than anything.
What does that stand for?
Who was that? Rhode Island School of Design?
Yeah.
Yes.
Maryland Institute College of Art.
Yeah.
So I have a couple questions that I was going to kind of just start out.
We started with kind of rambling for the last couple of days.
Deep personal things.
Yeah.
Just get right into it, and then we can just kind of ramble.
Knows everything about my mother.
Yeah, yeah, and soon you will. Yeah. So yeah, we'll ramble and then we'll do questions.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll start with I would say when you went into the more like atelier classical kind of training, for you, what changed most in like how you see when you first kind of started? Like, was there one thing where you're like, oh wow, like that is not kind of what I thought it was, or that's different, or I understand this is more important, or this is less important, or something? Like, was there like a?
So I started, like, I went through like undergrad was a very conceptual program, and I was like just really fed up after that. And I ended up finding a place in Seattle called the Seattle Academy of Realist Art or something. I forget. It's turned into like Gage Academy now. But there was a guy named Tony Ryder that was teaching there.
Oh,
You know what
I know the name. Yeah.
And it was like doing something really dirty and wrong to go and like, I want to draw from the model, and everybody's like, I want to learn how to draw good. So I started going down to Seattle and met Tony, and one of the first things was there's a model there, and he has his paints, or it depends what it was. He was painting, he was drawing, but he just like set up and was like, started drawing and showing everybody how to do it. I was like, what the hell is going on? Because nobody ever did that before.
Yeah.
That was the revelation. That was, I was sold right there.
Yeah.
And then I think a lot of it was like, sort of the basic, like what now to me is just like basic stuff, but I still teach it in classes, and it's brand new to most students, like block in.
You teach drawing in classes and that's
Yeah. Light and shadow, like how it technically works,
Yeah.
and how to translate it.
I had a similar experience with talking about Sargent to one of my professors at Micah, and I just kind of shot that and cringed a little bit. Even though it was more, embracing of all that kind of stuff. I went to a pre-college program there that blew my mind when I was probably, I was like 16 and a half, 17.
And they were showing you like,
Well, they showed us how to draw. They had a model up, and they came around. This guy, Carl Connolly, was like my mentor at the time, and he was the first person I ever met that was just like, here's how to do this better.
it was
And it just
shocking
blew my
to see
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Because nobody had ever done that.
So
But aren't there people
it
who
was
can't
shocking
draw
for
very
you?
well?
It really was.
Wow.
It really was.
Because in the early 80s, when I went to WashU, it was like studio immediately.
Like people showing you how to draw.
Immediately.
Oh, wow.
Immediately. Models, I mean, everything, it's like, I'm just shocked to hear what the hell happened to, this is in the Midwest, St. Louis, Washington University. And it's like,
Meaning what was that one?
that's where I went to school, where basically, first day, you walk in with your big pad,
Right.
and your Conte, and you went straight in studio. There was a model there, or whatever. You just started drawing, you learned about. It's shocking to just hear. Well, I guess different schools with different people, and how things change. It's like new math. The idea of new math. It's all true. It's like, okay.
Well, I went to school in the 70s, and in art school, it wasn't, Colgate University was an art major, so it was not a very big art program. This had been an all-male school.
May I ask what school?
Colgate University, in upstate New York. Anyway, it had all been, the school had been all males until my class was the first class of women. So they were a great science department. The art department was not very big because they typically back then weren't majors. So I never was taught how to draw.
I mean, there were the models and everything, but it was just like, go for it.
Yeah.
Start.
Nobody ever sat down
It was like,
and said, teach me how to draw. No.
I guess I lucked out.
Yeah.
Yay.
And ateliers hadn't really quite come about. Even when I graduated, there were like a couple around that I knew of, but I mean, it was.
For those of us coming from the outside, what is an atelier? How does it work?
Oh yeah.
What is it?
I mean, I ended up going to a place called Water Street Atelier. Antonio did too, and And basically what they were doing, it was a totally independent thing. A bunch of people agreed to get together and try to set up a situation that was emulating like 19th century French Academy style working. So it was like, here's cast drawing, start cast drawing, here's basically, this is the block in, here's light, this is light and shadow, this is how this works.
Cast just being a
An
platform.
artist,
Flat.
like the leader of the atelier, who's
Yeah,
the teacher and everybody else is a student sort of thing.
more or less. Jacob Collins was the person running it,
Yeah.
and Michael Grimaldi. I mean, those two were sort of the people that put it together. But pretty quickly after, like, well, I don't know how quickly, but after a few years, what started to happen was everybody they were teaching was getting so good that they ended up sticking around and teaching the next crowd of people that were coming in.
The best course I ever had at Clemson, which is you did school of architecture even better now. What it taught me to see was you had big newsprint and Conte crayon, and you could not look at the sheet. You drew looking at the model,
Yeah.
and it was amazing distortion. But after a while, they got better and better at it.
And you're actually looking.
So you had to look at you.
Right.
You could not look down at what you were doing.
Yeah.
It was wonderful.
So the atelier thing was tons of cast drawing for who knows how long. They wouldn't necessarily, it was sort of open-ended. If you were struggling with it, you just keep struggling with it. And the goal, I guess, for most of us, not all of us, there were a couple of people that were like, no, I'm gonna just do casts forever, was to get into the figure room. So eventually you get into this, and then you paint the cast, you have to figure out how to do the oil painting and everything. And then you get into the figure room, and then you start drawing from the figure, then you do grisaille, which is what that is, which is basically a tonal painting. So we go through these very kind of like, and I think we were all just kind of figuring it out too.
Is that an oil?
That's an oil painting.
Was it attached to a museum? Because museums often people have casts. Or did you just have to luck into a place that had lots of casts? Or are we talking like
Yeah, no, they weren't.
the great classical casts, or just
Some of them were. Some of them were like just the downright. I think that was a joke actually, that the squash held his head, you know.
Team of cast.
No, there's a bunch of places. There's a couple of places in New York, upstate maybe. There's one in the city, and they actually make some decent replicas, you know. But
I mean, that used to
the
be-
person who was running the place too had enough money to back up the situation. Yeah. So
And then did the faculty or the teachers give you critique on the drawings? You know, how did the teaching part of it work?
so they would just come around and sit down with you. And one of the amazing things about it too, sort of as an extension off of that question, is just that they would sit down in your seat and look at what you were doing and make the comparisons and be like, this, what do you think of this? These tilts are different, this is not, you know, all of these things. So you're constantly just training your eye on shapes, on tone, and then there would be side things, you know, people were obsessed with perspective or anatomy or whatever.
Did y'all also set up like still lives and do still lives?
And still lives.
Okay.
So at a certain point, some more of the advanced students were starting to like put still lives together, and the other thing that was happening too is they were hooked up with galleries that were, and you were encouraged to kind of teach the other people that were coming in, but also to start selling your work, you know, and that was pretty cool too, you know.
What's this?
Where was it? In Brooklyn.
Oh.
Yeah.
There are ateliers all over the place.
There are
No,
now.
I'm talking about, I should ask, when was this?
Oh, that
I mean,
was,
because if you're talking about, there was that many galleries, and they're getting, when was that?
this was, I moved there in January 2001.
So, it was a moment. You
Yeah.
went, you showed up at a good moment
But
for galleries.
I mean, 6 months later, right across the river, I mean, you literally get up on the roof and there were the Twin Towers right there. So it was very strange for a while there.
But for galleries, it's great.
But the galleries was good. Yeah.
There's a technique concept question.
Oh, yeah.
I'm really curious, especially with the direction you've taken everything from this Italian I was wondering, and I wrote this down just so I kind of word it right here. So, does technique or concept evolve first? Like, for example, does the ability to paint a certain way influence your conceptual thinking, or do you kind of have this conceptual idea that prioritizes, oh, I need to learn how to paint like that so that I can fulfill this?
Oh yeah.
Like, how does it do? Or is it? Yeah, I mean, it can also be. The easy answer is both at once. So don't say that. You got to. Yeah. Do you think, or it can be that. It can be that. But I was wondering, like, if there's one or the other that kind of.
I mean, I think all of this stuff, just doing this kind of training, it just got in there, you know. So
Did it
it's like
unleash that
training
kind of?
my eye. What's that?
Did it unleash something in there, or was there sort of this spark you had, and you're like, oh, now I can do it?
I think it was now I can. This sort of gets to that little pivot point that we sort of dropped the other day when we were talking about. I might be diverging from the question, I don't know. So one of the things that happened when I started painting this stuff, I reached a crisis point with everything was from life. That was the other thing. It was drawing, painting, everything was from life. That's the other atelier piece of the puzzle. And it was kind of like I felt it was getting kind of stale. Like, where's this going?
Too many stretch canvases.
Yeah, right.
Yes. Yeah.
Not enough stress in all this. And sort of the promise of like the Renaissance painting is to, you know, learn how to draw, learn how to paint really well, but then you got to do something with it. And their term is invention. You got to invent stuff. So you invent compositions, you invent things, you know. And then the modernists, you know, the great modern turn of the century modernists would say, do not learn to do that because that'll kill your imagination.
Wait,
That's
don't
death.
do that because of your imagination.
Like
You don't go
classical
the
painting.
classical way because that'll kill your imagination. So that's a bit of a challenge. There were two challenges basically, and I was like, okay, well, I don't know. There's a good challenge right there.
I think personality has a lot to do with it, because like we were talking about before, I mean, I've seen people come out of these academies and they will not deviate one iota from like that methodology, that way of training. And I try to be very like open source. You know, I'm like, oh, I like this, so I'll take that from there.
Yeah.
I'll take this from here, and then see what I can do with that.
Yeah.
And it seems like you do that too.
I mean, there's people that I went to school with that are still painting like that, which I don't get. I mean,
Yeah.
that's not my thing. You know, I think I'm too restless.
Yeah.
So I think at this point, like for this kind of stuff, I think it's I mean, it's hard to say. I think.
Did you dream stuff like that? I mean, just make up all that? I mean, that's just so weird.
Yeah.
Just call it weird. So,
Yeah.
like, do drop some acid or just, I mean, that just came
Yeah, every now and then, but I can't paint on
We've
acid.
got a testimonial for your website, right?
Yeah.
All that, right?
all the.
And I can't really work on drugs other than coffee and probably
I was
fast.
just thinking about, like Disney, you know.
So like the surrealists were, I've always loved that stuff,
Yeah.
even before I started doing this. I actually think this stuff is quite, almost in the surrealist vein.
Yeah.
But there's this thing of the automatic painting, automatic drawing, automatic writing, and you just put down shapes and colors and textures, completely random, totally abstract, and you sort of look into it. And the thing that was really engaging about working this way compared to that way is this sort of stepping back and shutting up, basically, like not shutting, just like be quieting down and listening, rather than just being like, there's a thing and I'm going, it's like, you know, there's a certain like over the top dominating the visual world of this, where this is like, I want to see what's coming out, and that's what this is.
Do you feel like there's an aspect of the atelier classical training that you had to suppress to let that happen? Or did it all just kind of come in handy to just let you fulfill that like more automatic kind of thing? Like was there something that was just like, don't do that, you can't do it that way? Like was there something you're like, no, I can now because this, or did it all just sort of serve that purpose more than anything?
I mean, I was kind of doing, some of this stuff was sort of happening in the 90s a little bit, but I was like, I I felt like I needed to know how to draw, whatever that meant. I needed to draw like Jericho.
Yeah.
That's what it was. I needed to draw like Jericho and Michelangelo.
Well, beyond that, though, your paint application is so interesting. You know, it's just interesting.
That's the
Your
abstract
brush work
expression.
and stuff. So
Love
is
the
that just,
abstract expression.
is that still sort of intuitive, or did you just create this space that, with your brush work and then go over again? It's thick and it's.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole conversation going on underneath, you know. I'd just be like palette knifing it on. And then, yeah. So I'm kind of like, I'm putting shapes down and I'm just trying to coax things out. And then a lot of times it just swims around for some endless amount of time until something shows up, a hand or often a face, right?
Okay.
Or some kind of like, what's that?
I said something shows up, I wonder.
Something shows up, I mean, is kind of the thing. I think the mind kind of panics a little bit because it's not comfortable in that place.
Your work today still shows in the best possible way your classical training. Turning the form, handling the paint, shading, you could go on half a day on what you're master of. It shows that.
Oh, that's awesome, yeah, thank you. That.
I don't see any line outlining anywhere. I look for it, I didn't see it.
Yeah, sometimes it's like, if it is, it's like intentional, almost comic booky thing. What you were asking about in terms of looking for something, like sometimes, some things do show up. I showed a piece here that was like this big, weird, fleshy thing with crystals on it. I don't know if anybody saw that one. And I had never painted crystals before. It just suddenly was like, oh, I need a crystal-like element in this picture. And so I was like, okay, well. And now I'm fine, I'll just scroll along. Crystals, and I'm like, it has to be darker, it has to be purplish, or whatever, I don't care. You know, at this point, I have no hang-ups about that at all. Whereas this, it was like no photographs.
Ah, okay.
Ever.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't ever, but that's what it was like, a hard and fast rule for me. Whereas now I'm like, whatever.
Oh, let me ask you the trendiest question, Paul, right now. How are you comfortable or uncomfortable with bringing like an AI generated? Like, if you're like, I want a crystal, would you prompt that in to a generator and get your perfect image, or do you feel weird about it? And I have no dog in this fight. I'm just curious.
No, I'm not interested in that at all in terms of painting, but the idea of AI is very interesting. I think there's something actually similar going on to, I guess I consider this kind of like metaphysical painting in a way, in the sense of putting stuff down and having, it's almost like I'm just gonna sit here and listen, and someone's gonna tell me what to paint, and I just kind of gotta get out of the way, and it's gonna happen, and I try not to be overly, so in this strange metaphysical way, something's out there, sort of going, possibly, I mean, I don't know what it is, but I think maybe something's happening with AI similar.
Okay.
I think in a way it's like we're contacting something. Maybe that's a little out there.
I just knowing you and some of the stuff you talked about, like you obviously have a wide ranging, like eclectic list of interests, and I was just wondering if in the like Atelier setup, like if just other cultural influences were also very like formalist or very classical, like movies or books, if they're interested in, I don't know.
In the stuff I'm looking at, or?
Yeah, just like things that were out there, like what were conversations like that about broader cultural things?
Oh, at that Atelier.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I guess so. I mean, it was, I think one of the strange things that was going on, I don't want to go down the political thing too far, but the cross-section of people that were there was, how do I say it? Was represented on both sides of the general American political spectrum.
There are good people in that.
Yeah. And,
Smart people and stupid people.
and so there were some very conservative thinking people, and there was like a handful of people that were like really exploring some interesting stuff. But I think the tendency of the type of training, there was a certain focus there that was there. I mean, it's almost like I don't know. So just as maybe a general thing is you could go look at Jacob Collins and you could look at Michael Grimaldi. those are the two main guys that were like, put the school together and running it. And if you kind of see where what their interests were, there's something there. So something, Jake was pretty strict about this is what's good and this is what's bad. Do this, don't do that. Mike's kind of like, no, you look at movies. Look at lots of movies. There's so much amazing stuff out there. Why limit yourself like that? Even though he was painting and drawing very, in a fairly specific way. But he's not afraid of looking at Otto Dink's prints, or something like that. So I think it depends, Yeah, I think it depends. I was on that side.
Just out of curiosity, how long did it take you to paint that?
Oh God, I don't know.
Months?
Yeah,
Years?
months. No, not years.
How many times you stop, let it dry, and come back? It obviously evolves.
I mean, I usually have like a number of things going on at once, and so if I get stuck or something's like something, I don't know, something's not right. Something feels weird.
Should go to movies.
Yeah, turn it around. Don't look at it for a while.
What was your initial inspiration for that piece?
The initial inspiration.
I mean, it looks futuristic to me. Just think about it.
I mean, all of these are basically literally just probably all started with lines. I literally just like, I'm gonna make a chromatic black, and I'm just gonna start making shapes on it, and then I'll start taking like thick paint. I mean, I guess it's like swimming around randomly, like like the great abstract expressionist painters. Maybe it's just pre-abstract, where they were like actually still interested in surrealism or something.
So that's interesting. You said that with the chromatic black. Is there kind of a hierarchy of what you start to bring in at what time? Like, is it like one color for a certain amount of time, or?
Not really.
No.
I think I quite seriously let it tell me what to do.
Okay, so it could be different paintings.
Yeah, like sometimes it's just like I'll just swim around and wait for something to show up. Sometimes I'll try to coax it, I'll be like, I'll make like a really like blunt sort of aggressive move. It is kind of making moves. I'll make a move and I'll be like, this is just kind of going nowhere, and I'll just like take the color and I'll just go, I'll scratch up like a piece of the painting that I'm like, this is the best part. And I'm like, fuck it, you're not doing anything. Like make a move,
So these vignettes are not fully formed in your mind, and you are then translating it from in your head onto like they emerge from the act, they emerge from the material.
Yeah, totally.
Interesting. At what point do you have to start making sense of it? At what point do you feel like, okay, and now this has to be a person, a face, an object? At what point do you start putting that kind of interpretation on top of what the material is doing?
Or is there a point?
It'd be hard to say. I don't know. I don't know if it's because I don't necessarily know exactly what that is or means. I don't really know. I know bits and pieces of it, and it feels a little bit like it's going like, what, you don't get it? What? Bits and pieces of it. At this point, to me, it is, like eventually the story kind of unfolds, and like these little guys, so it's catabolic landscape, and which implies that the landscape is kind of like a physiological action, operation of something, and it's dissipating. So things are dissipating rather than joining up. This guy's literally like, I'm out of here, I'm going that way. So everybody's the idea is everybody's evacuating the center of the painting, which is kind of a weird compositional thing, except for these guys are marching in.
Once you see this man, you can't forget him.
This guy?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He's a memorable image.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Do you use the same palette for all your paintings? Or you change the palette?
It's probably those two are more or less the same.
So that you don't just always lay out the same paint? Or do you
but I do have, like, some of that I try to like intentionally challenge myself on, because I definitely fall into habitual mixes. Like the chromatic black is almost like a default thing. I'll be like, I have no idea what to do today. Mix those colors together. And I can sort of like push it warm and push it cool, light, dark. So it's a pretty diverse, it's a pretty versatile mix, I guess, you know? That's where
Do you start out with the size of the painting, like that one's, medium size? Those are much larger. Is that a decision you make in the beginning, or do you let that come to you?
Yeah, I'll usually like pre-stretch, or, these are already made, the smaller panels are already made. And I'm not really sure. I think this was basically like, I would like to paint that big, but I don't know what I'm gonna do with those things. And my studio's getting pretty small and it's filling up. So, I guess I'm gonna go that size.
What'll fit in the back of your car?
What'll fit in the backyard. Make sure it goes out the door before you start.
So when you work with students or younger artists, what do you, like what approach do you use? Do you
That.
use the atelier?
Totally. I mean, totally. Yeah. To me, it's kind of, and they don't always like that. So it's kind of like,
Because I feel like
it's
they're
hard work.
Right.
It's hard work, and you gotta kind of keep doing it, So, but it's like, I don't know. It's a weird juggling act. It's because it's kind of like, I mean, you don't want it to just be like hard Spartan labor, on the one hand. It has to be somewhat enjoyable. It's gotta be fun. So I kind of try to like keep it moving, I suppose. I don't know.
Is
That
bookshelf piece your?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that
I was a student of his, and
old days?
well, it's like you first go to art school and like you don't really know what's going on yet. Like your high school art classes, and it's not much formal education at all. And then I guess started out like the first thing he had a demonstration still I've set up, and he started. He was like looking back and talking to the 16 of us. He's like, yeah, like what was your day? And it's like perfect. And it's like, well, I'm gonna try to listen to this guy, but I don't think it was like dull. It was very difficult, and like you kind of like understand light and space, and he'll walk around and he'll have like a surgical kind of like, oh, you did this wrong, and it's like exactly what was wrong, and you know it was off about it. But I think I think where like the kind of flashes of this stuff come in is not so much in like what you're working on, but like what you're talking about. Like you could talk about something really bizarre, like some strange sci-fi movie or something like that. And I think that's what, for me, like, I don't know, just where I saw this and what kept it really interesting, and I saw that it could go other places that weren't just like, drawing cast circles. I mean, spheres over and over again.
I thought he's announcing him now.
No.
That's in the back alley.
Need one of those hats, and then a little
A Gordon Dunst hat.
Yeah.
Inquisition.
On your knees, be getting to that.
Sorry, I was just thinking like too, this, like having this, what is it, the design?
The design.
For the the design paired with this like panel, like makes so much sense to me. I haven't seen those two next to each other, and just like the way, even though that's totally imaginal, that's a hyper organic form, that greeny canvas or a panel, and so it makes a lot of sense to me. Just the shapes.
Oh, yeah.
Like that imaginal process would stem from being able to understand forms in your mind.
I really enjoy how you're describing your what you evolved into as your approach. Because I've been doing weird sound collage stuff for 47 it's very similar. You're almost describing exactly, like I do have these skills. I never went to school. People say you should go to school and learn music, and I learn the rules to break the rules. And I said, no, I don't even want to know what the rules are to break the rules. I just want to be inventing my own thing, my own sandbox.
It's like Brian Eno.
But well, someone like that was inspiring, not to copy him, but just because he was just exploring and experimenting. But what I love hearing is how you do have these skills and abilities and techniques, but you're just kind of in a conversation with sort of your own brain, but sort of whatever's out there, and the paint and all of that's just kind of like what speaks to you. And I know when I'm doing sound stuff, I always feel like I'm in a kind of a dialogue with the devices. What? Oh, I didn't know you were going to do that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Neat.
yeah, yeah.
That's a surprise. Okay, where do we go with that? And
Like there's accidents, there's
yeah,
accidents
and getting
happening.
good at noticing the cool accident and not having the ego attached to what you were planning to do, and just like, no, that's going to take me in a whole other direction I didn't expect. But then that's part of it. And then if later that's part of creating work, and then more starts to take shape. And this is like you were saying about eventually forms emerge that have more specificity to them, and then at some point you start to say, oh, I think this is turning into an actual piece, in my case, a piece of music.
Right.
But yeah, but it's really interesting to hear. It's remarkably similar to what I think is going on. And it's almost a dream. Yeah, you're channeling something. It's a dream state. It's a
That's awesome to hear.
You're like, how did this even? Do you have that where you're like, how did that even happen? You step back and go,
Oh yeah.
how did I do that?
Yeah,
It is- it is that
sometimes,
good-
sometimes you check out.
Yeah.
To pick up on that comment, so I went to a music conservatory. I'm a musician too and composer, so I feel like I spent my entire life learning what I learned in conservatory. And so I also create sound pieces and I'm a percussionist, and but there's a technique that I have spent half of my life learning, that is the correct.
The rules.
The rules. And I can play, an orchestra and follow all of that language and understand that history and do analysis and all of that stuff. But then it's where you leave that behind and create your own kind of path.
That was bumpy and painful.
Yeah.
I have a question kind of related to that. Because I know how I feel about this, but for you, at this point, you've got these visions. I feel like you've got a well in you, or at least, you're letting this, like you said, kind of stuff flow through you to paint this. Do you find that scrolling and getting these other influences is like hectic for you, or do you find that like the more other stuff you see, the better, because it just gives you more kind of subconscious material to work with?
Like digital images.
You could say other painters. I just scrolling as an example of like, the endless feed on Instagram of what everybody's painting right now, or books or any kind of thing. Like, do you draw from it, or you like get it away from me because I know I can't get pulled in all these directions?
Like sometimes things that are like particularly attractive, I have to cut off because there's certain artists that I'm just so like, oh my god, that's incredible. At a certain point, I'm kind of like, you can't look at that anymore because you're just going to start replicating or copying that person, in a way.
Okay.
And it needs to be more raw, I guess, or free or something. But I mean, I want to keep whatever's coming in as vast as possible. I read a lot. I listen to a lot of music.
Do you find that like
Film.
adjacent inspirations are better than like the direct visual painting inspiration?
These days, maybe. I think so.
Okay.
But I definitely look at a lot of painters, but they tend to be like old and dead.
Okay.
A lot of them. I try to keep up on. It's just so vast now. It's almost like everything's expanded, But I try to keep up on what's like current people are doing.
It's so vast, but yeah, I try to too. Yeah. For me, I have to kind of temper that because I'll just get pulled in every different direction.
Yeah.
These contradictory influences, and I'm mad I can't do both at the same time. And I'm like,
Yeah, that's,
it's overwhelming.
that's a
With painting
difficult one.
especially, yeah.
Yeah, I think by this point in my career, I can almost feel like when that's coming up.
Okay.
Like as an undergrad, like learning, that was one of the problems I think of art school. Was it was like you have like 4 teachers and they're going do this, do that, do this, and they're all contradicting one another, and you're like, what? And then you try to do your own thing, and they're all going, what are you doing?
Do you feel like there was one thing you were just most obsessed about getting right? I know there's so many different, in the atelier, so like when you first started, yeah, was there,
It almost went through phases.
just, yeah.
I think the first one is like the block in your height to width, tilts, angles, proportion. Like, you know, and then it was like you do this drawing, it was like this really immaculate drawing, you spend all this time on it, and you stand back again and you're like, ah, shit, that part is all messed up, you know? And then, so one of the, like, Tony Ryder was like, I remember I did like, Ted, his teacher, he was like this accolade of this other teacher. Do you know Ted Seth Jacobs?
No, that name sounds familiar, but that can't be true.
He's interesting to have him under radar anyway. But he said, just do block-ins, just do starts for like, whatever, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour, no longer than that. Just block in. Do that for a year.
Yeah, I had a teacher told me the same thing, but just the
It's
same.
brilliant. I mean, to hear that when you're in your 20s is brutal, though. That's just like, what?
Did you do it?
Not for a year, but I was like, yes, I shall do that. I did it for a couple of months and I was like, in pain or whatever, you know.
I have a question. We're kind of in this moment, I'm just telescoping back a little bit, but where a lot of kind of pretty established art schools are closing, like the University of the Arts and the Pennsylvania Academy, and I think California School of Art is closing this year, you know.
Is that right, really?
Yeah, I think so. And what do you think is going on?
Yeah, whatever AI represents, there's a massive wave going through the psyche of Earthlings, of all living beings on the planet. There's something going on that's way beyond economics, though. But I guess too esoteric. But I think
part of it. I think, yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe capitalism's dying. You know, maybe it's just like it broke itself and it's just not working anymore. I mean, the master's program, degree program, like, what?
Yeah.
You get an MFA? Really?
Yeah.
I mean, I did, but it's like.
And a lot of those schools, like even Micah, we always joke that pretty soon it's going to be MyCAD. They're going to throw design at the end.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of these schools kept pushing more and more towards graphic design. And the idea of being 18 right now and saying you're going to take up graphic design when I can do like a killer design with a 20-word prompt is daunting. Like, I don't know if somebody's going to go to pay $75,000 a year, you know, to learn that right now.
But I think in a way, I find myself getting more and more esoteric with this. Maybe it's age, I don't know. Things are getting really freaking weird, though. Really weird.
In what way? In your world? In just the art world in general? Or just...
We have an orange president who,
Okay,
without Congress, attacked Iran. That's pretty weird.
I got what you just meant.
AI is really weird. I think, like, we don't know, even the people that are making it don't know what it is.
Would either of you recommend to a 15, a 16, 18-year-old to go to art school anymore?
Sure.
You would say,
Yeah,
go,
absolutely.
pack your belongings, pack a trunk, and go to art school.
Totally.
Well, I have a hindsight course that I would, like, you know, my hindsight, I would do things differently, but I would, I don't know that I necessarily say go to a 4-year expensive college, because now that I can find any artist that I love and do targeted training with them, you know, Mark Boges, or I can do, so many other people out there.
So do you have the sense that because they are all online, and they're like YouTube tutorials, that's how they're learning, right? So they probably have access to those teachers, I'm guessing.
Yeah, and I would encourage them, because the biggest benefit I had with art school, the teachers, I had some great teachers teachers, as the professors that were like, you know, a new dad to me and stuff, but going from New Jersey Public High School to being with these young people that had been in magnet schools for the last 4 years that were already like so good.
Yeah.
It was that kind of like
Your peers.
4-minute mile effect, like, oh, it can be done. Like, I'm seeing all these like peers doing it, and I'm with them, and I'm immersed with them, so you're more obsessed with it than you'll ever be in that, like, that environment. I couldn't do that on YouTube by myself, you know, like.
Right. Yeah, that, the in-person community thing is
So from that,
you
Can
cannot.
you teach technique and color without going to architecture? That's right, to art school.
Can you teach it?
Technique,
Or learn it?
yeah,
Learn it.
or,
YouTube or.
I'm sorry, learn, sorry.
I think so.
You sure?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's easier to have somebody kind of look over your shoulder and go that way, not like just keep cycling over and over and obsessing over things. There's definitely like, that's useful.
There's hundreds of online workshops by really great artists, not just YouTube, but you have to pay for it, but it's like going to their art workshop and it's a video.
Yeah. I think the in-person my thing with community and people.
Vinci do, okay.
Yes, and I don't know how much of that. Well, you go to
Jeff is creeping over. Ask one more question, or it's to Diana's point. I mean, higher education is a business, and art schools are a business, and so there's an inherent kind of dysfunction when you're training or an outside the atelier system or a mentor PT system. You are expected to pay a certain amount, which is a lot for artists, and there's no way to pay that back.
Yeah, and the number of jobs that you are being sort of promised. I think the promises seem to be backing off. Is getting radically fewer and fewer to the point where it's like, what now?
Well, yeah, and I lived in Philadelphia and I lived in Brooklyn, and but I know intimately well what happened with the arts, and it's a big business, and if it fails, just like a lot of businesses fail, there's economic reasons.
You know, like one thing that really is truly happening because of AI is there's now a term called cognitive atrophy. And that's when people use the computer too much to solve their problems. The brain is literally atrophying because it's not doing the work. And there's another one called semantic aphasia where the ability to put together meaning is actually diminishing in people because the computer does it for you. It tells you, you ask the question, you know, what's this artist, how is he regarded in such and such circles, and you got the answer. You know, you need to look at the work, engage with it. I worked in the movie business for 20 years where we did a lot of the Renaissance techniques to make backdrops, and we noticed definitely a generational difference between like the guys who were doing it in the 60s and 70s is probably, they were the best at it. The guys who were doing it in the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s like me was another generation, and then there's this newer generation. You're just like, oh my God, like, you know, getting them to understand warm and cool with color. It's like a project. Forget about color temperature. You don't even go there.
Yeah.
I
I
think
think
see the generational decline of certain perceptive skills that because
there is something about like would you get the kid who like is spends all his time drawing to go to art school? Hell yes.
they don't
Go
even
wrestle
know-
through it and actually try to like dirt on paper, like paint and draw. Because I think it's the exact opposite of that. I actually think the tools that are built into trying to figure this stuff out is the exact opposite. That is going to build your brain. That is going to build your conceptions about how to see the world, how to feel things.
Like they wouldn't even know what drawing from life means.
Right.
You have to explain it. This
So are you saying that you should start bypassing this generation, with this YouTube generation, and going straight to people who are picking up dirt and drawing on the wall in the far-flung corner corners of the world.
Leonardo did that.
Is
So
that
take
where
the schools there.
Yeah, no, it's, I was telling us that's where you'll find the new creative outbursts because the milieu around you is basically so saturated now with TikTok and AI stuff, you can't get anything original thought out of it. So you're gonna have to take your basket of dirt down to
The cadence,
the divas.
You might be right.
So I'll stop it there. This was really fun. This is the first time we've done this. You both did a really good job.